Welcome to the Waves of Joy podcast. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. I'm a mindset empowerment coach and an energy healer. This podcast is about finding joy. It will also be about inspiring people who have built joy-filled lives. You'll hear more about how to find joy through the day, the weeks, the months, and years of your life, and learn about how to spread joy. You'll also hear powerful stories that don't sound joyful at the beginning, but where joy was found. I started this podcast because I wanted to normalize finding joy in the ups and downs of daily life. I hope you feel inspired and entertained. Pop in your earbuds, take me with you on your commute, or both. Let's do this. Find waves of joy. Would you like to feel better and release limiting beliefs? Of course you would. I created a free meditation for you that's downloadable. As soon as you click submit, I'll email you with a downloadable version of this free meditation. Go to brendawinkle.com/feel better.
Thank you for sharing. I'm just finishing up my creativity VIP half day with my client. Of course, amazing things happened. I taught him a little bit about the Reiki principles that I learned, showed him some self-healing gestures that he could use, and he walked out feeling all empowered. So, yeah, it's just rolling in. So, thank you. I know this is possible because you made it so. And I will happily, like I said, give a testimonial, send over whatever, do videos, do audios. You can put them over your pictures. You can make a new moving board or have the moving board be us. And I will, I'm so happy to talk about what this has been. So I'm going to continue this incredible work. I also had a couple of other really incredible interactions that I'll tell you about, but it's like you open the heavens, you open the clouds up from the heavens, and the goddesses have really they're just here, and they're letting us know that we're already doing it. We're rising, we're doing the right things. So I feel like I have like brand new eyes, and at the same time, just this ancient knowledge, of course, that we accessed. I'm holding all of it, the ancient wisdom as well as the wisdom of right now. So thank you so much, my friend.
Oh my gosh, Mary, it is so good to see you. Thank you for joining me on Waves of Joy.
This is exciting for me too. I feel like as much as you want to hear about me, I want to hear about what you've been doing, because I've been semi-following you on Facebook and your travels too. So maybe travels isn't just the word, but
yeah, I love it.
Your life's journey.
Yes, likewise. So I remember sitting across from you, sitting at lunch, because we were both in the schools when we met.
Yes.
And I remember having conversations with you.
Give me the initials of which school we ended up at.
WP.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
That was one of my last assignments.
And we were at two schools together because we were at the previous school that started with an H before that.
Yes. When I first came to Boise, we can say Boise School District.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then you were at the junior high I worked at.
That's right.
A little bit. So yeah,
right.
We've crossed paths a few times over the years.
We have. And I remember like every time that you were in the lunchroom, I was like, yay, Mary's there. This is going to be a great conversation. Because you always had such interesting things to say. And I loved your perspective and your sense of adventure. And oh my gosh.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't always feel very adventuresome in the school lunchroom, but I wasn't going, kill me now.
The school lunchroom it can be a place of release, but I always felt like our conversations were positive. And that's part of the reason I really liked them is they were always positive and they were always solution oriented and always about what we wanted to happen next.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, thank you, because that is kind of things that are of value and priority to me,
I love that.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I feel the same. And I remember having a conversation with you, and one of the male sixth grade teachers walked in and was talking about having heritage in a specific European country. And you said, I want to live there. And
I don't
I
even remember that conversation.
I do, because I was thinking to myself, I want to go there too. And that's where you are. So tell us the
Right.
story of where you
Yeah.
are and what's happening
Okay.
and what's going on in your life.
So I live in Portugal, and actually, as of about 2 weeks ago, I am an official temporary resident of Portugal,
Oh my
on my
gosh.
way to hopefully becoming a permanent resident and possibly even a citizen. But that's, farther down the story. But
Congratulations.
yeah, I never would have thought I would actually get here. But this, this, the desire goes back even longer than that conversation. So that's why I don't remember that specific conversation.
Yeah.
But if you remember, I served in the Air Force right out of high school, and I served as a German linguist in Berlin back when there was a West Berlin and an East Berlin and all that kind of stuff. That's, another whole story of my time in Intel, which is interesting with all the stuff that's happening in the world right now to kind of see some of that stuff. But anyway, I loved being in Europe. Obviously, I was working there most of the time I was stationed there. So I didn't travel as much as I might have wanted to, but I did travel quite a bit. And I always thought, oh, it would just be a dream to retire and live in Europe somewhere and then be able to travel because I just love the history, the art. I mean, I just love everything about the food, the wine. It's all great. So, but I always thought it was more of a pipe dream than something that would turn into reality. But I can tell you exactly. So a couple years ago, like it would have been late March. So I ended up retiring from the school district in late July of 2020 because of the whole COVID stuff. I went through part of that craziness. I was already at full retirement age for my pension, and it was before we had vaccines, before we had, much treatment, and some of the things that they wanted me to do when I came back made me feel really uncomfortable. So I just went, you know what? I'm just going to retire. It was a year to 2 years earlier than the original plan, but so I was still living in Boise in my lovely little townhome, and I came home one day about a year later in March. Remember this exactly. It's like the end of March 2021. Just give you an idea. And they were putting a little real estate sign up in my neighborhood. They were putting the sign up. They were digging the hole the first day I saw it. The next day they put the sign up. The day after it was sold. I went, oh my gosh. And then of course all the neighbors started talking, it was sold for more than, this was the start of that huge explosion that happened. And I had a lovely townhome. I thought I was going to die in that place or, live there till I needed to be moved out. And I enjoyed it. And I figured I'd be traveling, once we could travel again from there. But when I heard what that went for, I went, oh my gosh, I'm going to sell my house, my townhome, and go to Europe. And so I did. Here I am. So it took a little bit more than that, but I had to sell my house, which didn't take long, other than I had to get rid of, I'd only been in there 10 years, but it's just amazing how much you accumulate
Mm-hmm.
over the years. And it was a lovely place that had my dream kitchen and love, it's usually where we did family gatherings. So I don't have a big family, but we would all get together at my place, and I love doing barbecues and parties and all that stuff. So I had acquired all the kind of accoutrements to be able to host 10, 20, even 30 people. And so it's a lot of getting rid of stuff that was involved there. But my house sold very quickly. I hit the top of the peak there. I sold it in August of 2021.
That's amazing.
And I had to have a little detour in getting here because thankfully I looked. My passport was due to be renewed just this past summer, I think in June. And in order to get the visa and stuff, you have to have at least a 6-month time on your passport from the
Oh,
time
right.
that you arrive.
Right.
So I had to renew my passport first, which if you remember reading anything, it was taking months and months
Yes.
a year ago.
Yes.
They were saying things like, it's going to take 12 to 18 weeks to process it, and then maybe another 6 weeks of transport, to and from. So anyway, and you could pay extra for an expedited version that would take 12 weeks. I went, what the heck? I didn't have anything but time, so I just said I'll wait for my passport to get here, and then I ended up selling my townhome. It's a lovely, lovely place, but don't miss it a bit.
Isn't that
I miss
interesting?
I miss some of the people
Yes,
now and then,
for
but
sure.
they'll visit. I'll visit them. Actually, I'm going to be back in Boise in October because, get this, after I made all these plans, there have been no weddings in my family for over 10 years. I made all these plans to move to Portugal, and I had both a nephew and a niece get engaged in the last few months, and I had a wedding in July, I went back for, and then this wedding in October.
Well, that'll be a great chance to just reconnect with people, and then
Yeah. So I didn't stay. My nephew's wedding was back in Vermont, so I don't have any other family there. So I just kind of did a really quick fly over, fly back, had a good time. But I'm gonna stay like about 2 weeks when I come back in October.
that sounds awesome. So
Anyway,
that
so
is so incredible and inspiring and brave. And I'm sure that you had people say some supportive things and some fear-based things when you told them about these changes.
it was what really surprised me the most was that almost everybody just went, well, yeah, of course you're going to do that. which was it was very validating. I don't know, that's not really quite the word I want for it, but it was just really great to have so many people go, well, yeah, I can see you doing that. And then later some people talked about, aren't you nervous, aren't you anxious, blah 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 blah. But almost completely everyone was just like, well, yeah, of course, which I thought was really, really nice
Yeah.
to hear. And it just felt so good to be like, I had one person, a family member by marriage, we'll say. So I doubt anybody in my family is going to be listening, but just in case, I won't name it, but made a comment one day, I think, and I think it was made thinking I was out of earshot.
Oh, I see.
So I don't think it was meant for me to hear, but it was a comment of something like, uh, I don't know, about a single woman her age moving to a foreign country, that kind of thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember in my head going, well, I'm a single woman my age, no matter where I am. I might as well, I might as well be in Portugal.
You might as well be in Portugal, where
I
you have
might,
wanted to be.
one of the safest nations in the world, by the way. It ranks in the top 3 usually. So, I
That
mean,
is
if you're worried
amazing.
about safety,
Yeah,
I mean, as a single woman being somewhere, Portugal wouldn't be the place to be worried
I love this.
about
I love
it.
this. So in looking at your Facebook
It's 8
journey,
p.m. here, so I did bring a little cocktail.
oh, good. It's just noon here, so I'm still drinking
I
water
know.
and coffee.
Yeah, I've
But
got water too.
I love that it's like we're having happy hour.
I know.
So when I look at your pictures on Facebook, I
Yeah.
see a glowing smile, like true, genuine happiness. I see your eyes lit up. I see possibility, and I see you posting pictures with friends, and it looks like you're active in the
Oh,
community already. Tell us
I
about that
know.
experience.
It's amazing. I actually am doing doing more. I mean, I have some very, very dear friends and family in the States, but most of my coworkers, colleagues, they're working and stuff. So I have a few friends that were retired and we would do things, but I mean, I could seriously, if I wanted to, have something social scheduled, a couple things social scheduled every day of the week here. Um, but I can't do that. It'd be too
That
exhausting.
is so
But
amazing.
yeah, there's a tremendous group, mostly women, mostly single women that I've connected with, uh, mostly older single women that I've connected with. It's surprising how many, we've talked about that within our group a couple times, how many, single women have made this leap, to come to a foreign country, and not so many men. There definitely are some men, and there's men that are part of couples, but there seems to be a lot of single women.
Hmm.
And, there's just so much to do. And whatever you are interested in doing, I mean, it's not Portugal's, a modern country.
Yeah.
They, it's like, and they have a great deal of technological infrastructure and all that, Wi-Fi. It's um, so accessible everywhere. It's great.
Hmm.
But yeah, within a very short time, I got onto some meetup groups, and there's and through Facebook, which I wasn't a big Facebook person, but there's some great resources on there for people, the whole process of that you needed to do to process to get the D7 visa.
Hmm.
There are just some fabulous resources to be able to do all that. On your own without having to do pay for a service type. So, um, so through those sites, I've run into a number of people, and yeah, there's kind of a core group of us. I actually have a kind of a couple different little groups. I have a woman I met who is a certified knitting and crochet teacher, and she has done some little she'll get started again doing some knitting things where we get together at a cafe and hang out, knit, which I do a little bit of. I'm a novice. That's something else I picked up um, right before COVID hit, and it just was a fortunate thing because you could order yarn and patterns and
Yeah,
stuff all
for
online,
sure.
and I I feel like I'm going all over the place, but I always liked sewing and stuff. But I love textiles and color and stuff. So it turned out to be something I loved a lot more than I thought I would. I was thinking, oh, this will be a handy little thing to kind of learn to do and keep my mind occupied as a retiree. And then I just love it to death. So
Oh my gosh. So one of the things
So
that I
I
hear,
have that connection. Go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. There was a little lag and I didn't realize you were talking.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I hear people talk about in the States a lot is being lonely and
Yeah.
having a hard time finding groups that have like the day-to-day kinds of support
Yeah.
and meeting. Do you find that it's different in Portugal because the culture is different, or is it different because you have made a decision to make it different?
Well, I think I would answer probably a little of both. One of the things I started to tell you, then I got diverted in my own thoughts. When I sold my house in Boise in August, I actually moved to Central Washington, to Tri-Cities area, for a couple of reasons. I had to find someplace to live.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that if I had emigrated directly from Idaho to Portugal, I would have had to continue to file and pay Idaho state income tax
Oh,
the rest of my life, even
interesting.
though I didn't have any connections there. And I actually grew up in Washington and I have lots of family in Washington. So I ended up just going there and I kind of picked the middle of the state because I have like a brother in Spokane and people in Western Washington. And I still had my family in Boise as well. So I just thought that was a good. So I rented a place in Pasco for about 7 months to get all the paperwork process and stuff, which actually turned out nice because it was kind of like a mini downsizing first. Got rid of a whole bunch of stuff to move from a townhome to so my townhome was like, I don't know, 2 bedrooms, actually 3 bedrooms, but one was an office. Anyway, but while I was there, I got together. I found an awesome book club. I can't remember their name right now, but they had a really interesting name of their book club. And then I found another group that met every other Saturday. It was a little bit older group, met every other Saturday for coffee and conversation at a local restaurant. And then another group, which I think was a spinoff from that coffee and conversation group, some of the same people that met like once a week to play pool at this little bar, which was really fun because I'm a horrible pool player. But it wasn't about, it wasn't like being in a league. We just got together and we changed partners every game and just had a fun time. And some people were really, really good and some people were it's a fun time to hang out.
Yeah, it's about the
So
community.
so yeah, I had at least 3 active groups that I was kind of connected with there. I think here it's um, probably about the same number, maybe a little bit more kind of groups I kind of uh, connect with. I just think there's uh, maybe more varied activities here with,
Mhm.
there's so much, like one of the groups I'm with, we spend, kind of like, we did a tour of a clothing and theater museum, costume museum recently, or so do more kind of like different sites and things like that. And then there's another group that meets. They meet every Sunday, but I told them I can't commit to every Sunday, but I meet once a month with them because they do a lovely brunch and spend a couple hours hanging out.
Mhm.
And that's a fun group because it's a real mix of people. It's not just Americans. There are people from all over. Literally all. There's a couple from Hong Kong that joined that group. There's a couple of folks from the Netherlands, and, South Africa and South America, Americans, Israel. It's just a really, really diverse group. So it's
How
great.
did you find these groups?
Well, that last group I got invited to by one of the women that I met. So going back to that some of the first people I met via those Facebook sites that were offering, you know, help and suggestion. There, one of the women that I met through that, when I came in January to kind of find one of the things you have to do to get your visas, have a lease, or oh no, but you have to have an accommodation. You have to have at least a 12-month lease
Okay.
in advance of getting your visa. So, which is kind of a pain, but it's just what you have to do. And so we had connected via that Facebook site. And when I was here in January, she also lives in Lisbon, and we met for dinner, and we just kind of connected. So she invited me to the brunch group, and then out of that same, you know, there's just been some different groups that have kind of splintered off and been smaller groups to do things. And then the knitting I found actually on, are you familiar with the Buy Nothing
Yes.
websites?
I love
So
Buy Nothing.
there's a Buy Nothing Lisbon. Yeah, I love it too. And that's how I met the knitting instructor. She said she offers free knitting instructions for people that want to just come and hang out and be like part of a little knitting circle. We haven't done it recently. She and I have met separately, but she hasn't done a group once because it's been kind of summer touristy time. So
Yeah.
But and then there's a board game group that meets at a little cafe that's really close to where I live. And I found that was a meetup site. Actually, no, I found that by accident. I was walking home and I passed that cafe, and it usually closes in the late afternoon, evening. It's usually like just a breakfast lunch cafe. And it was open at night. And I looked in, and there's all these young folks. By young folks, I mean, you know, probably 35, playing all these board games, like the big, like, I don't know if you know, like Catan and those kind of things. I went, oh my gosh. And I walked in and I was talking to them. And that's another group that's very international, much more young men than women in that group. But, and they said, yeah, they come used to be every Thursday, and now they do every Tuesday and Thursday. Once again, I can only do once a week because otherwise I could, you know, I'd have something going on all the time. But they have both that and the brunch thing. They have they're on Meetup, and Meetup is where I found all of the places in Pasco. So it's been good for. I mean, you have to kind of watch what you're in, you know. Sometimes some that are meant to be more, I don't know, like dating or connecting, but these are just people who are sharing like interests, and it's great fun. So.
This is amazing because, you know, I make friends pretty easily. I'm outgoing, I'm extroverted. I need my time for quiet, but I'm an extrovert. And so it's easy for me to talk to people. And during the pandemic, we moved to Portland, like right in the middle of the pandemic. And so, you know, I've met people, you know, my neighbors, coworkers, different things like that. And a lot of the things that people talked about having been in Portland were kind of siloed during the pandemic because Portland is very conservative about COVID, very cautious. And so the meetup groups have been a place that I've been meeting people too, like international dining and plant-based Portland and things like that. And I haven't gotten to go to any of the meetings yet, but I'm getting the emails and I'm like learning the names of the people. And so I love that Meetup can be a way to actually meet up, and it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah. And Portugal, like it is also very, I mean, it sounds like I'm going all the time, but you know, actually it was only literally last week, a week ago Friday, this past Friday, a week before that they stopped requiring mask wearing on public transportation.
Oh, yeah.
And in public venues, inside public venues. So they've been a very, very conscientious about public safety, which has felt good to me.
Yeah, it does feel good. It feels really good. Just to know that people care about well-being
Yes.
and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I had one was either an Uber or Bolt. Bolt is like Lyft. I don't know if you have. They don't
We
have.
have Uber and Lyft, but I saw Bolt
They
in
have Bolt
Paris, I
in.
think.
Yeah. So we have Uber and Bolt here. So uh, anyway, one of those drivers was like, he was explaining to me that in Portugal they care more about their community and their older folks and stuff, and that's why they wear masks than we in the United States.
Oh, that's interesting.
I just went, yeah. So, because they were hearing so much about, all the mass protestations. And
Mm-hmm.
so I, it's funny because I'm like, I get excited, but I am definitely an introvert. I know people that think, oh, I mean, I can certainly converse with people. I was much, much more reticent to speak and shyer when I was younger, but I am definitely someone that it sounds like I'm going, but I have also a lot of time. I live here now, so
Yeah.
I'm trying not to. I mean, I think at first you kind of spend a lot of time making connections, um, and I did. I went to a lot more things at first and kind of met a lot more people, and now I'm kind of uh, what's the word I want? Pruning. Um, those back a little bit to the things that are of most interest and the relationships that are, you know, um, I realize that, I share more in common with some of these people or um, because you could be going all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have to, you have to clean house and do laundry and do grocery shopping and those things. Um, um, and I found a great pool so I can swim, a couple days a week, and all the things that I would do just as part of being, day-to-day stuff still has to happen. I'm not on like permanent vacation mode.
No, you're just living somewhere you really want to live and creating the life
Yes,
you love.
yes, yes. And I mean, I love the people here are so friendly. I definitely need to learn more Portuguese, and um, it's coming, but slowly. I need to take an actual more formal class. I took a quick little, like a little 6-week intro class that was great to give me a head start, but I need to take like a more actual formal language class. And
So,
I'm
I just
getting
want
on
to
some lists.
that makes me want to just say for people that are listening, as long as you're willing to learn, you don't have to know it all right now. If you're moving
Oh
to a
no,
country that doesn't speak the language that you speak.
right. And it is true that they say the Portuguese public school system teaches English starting in elementary school. So especially more the younger people know a lot of English. Um, though it varies. Like like in my immediate neighborhood, not many people speak English. There's a little cafe across the street from me, and the owner is now really impressed because he says good morning to me no matter what time of day it is.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I mean, the people are really friendly, and I have lots of people trying to teach me Portuguese, and I don't understand half of what they're trying to teach me, but I
But
will
it's
learn it. I
coming.
don't have any doubt that I'll learn it.
I
But,
don't either.
but and like the public and that kind of stuff, the civil servants and those they all speak pretty good Portuguese. Even when they say they don't, they speak a lot better Portuguese or a lot better English than you would think. And so I think especially if you know the first thing I made sure I learned was, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't speak much Portuguese. Do you speak English? Those get some of those common phrases down, and and approach it with, a little bit of humility as opposed to, why aren't you speaking English? It's like,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
I've had nothing but very, very gracious help.
I love this. I love it so much. So I'm asking for our listeners, but I'm also asking because I want to know what would be like one or two things that someone should know before making a leap like this.
Well, I can think of it. There's like a bunch of thoughts going through my head right now. Let me kind of filter them down. I think, well, one is anything like this takes time. I mean, how do I want to say this? Doing this in the way I've done it is this is a choice, where I'm choosing to come and live someplace else. That's very different from people who are, in a situation where like refugees and they just have to leave and drop everything and for their safety or whatever reason. Thinking of like we had a lot of Ukrainian refugees come here. And we're starting to come in large numbers around the same time I arrived. And they were very different, in very different circumstances. And so I think especially for Americans, we tend to be impatient. And we tend to want things to work the way we want them to. Even if that's not the way things work. And so I think I've seen people get really frustrated by what they talk about, this horrible bureaucracy and you have to always wait and all this kind of stuff. And I think, well, I think you just have to go into the mindset that, you're learning a whole new, and Western Europe is certainly not a whole new culture in the way other parts of the world might be. But you have to just have some patience, and be okay that you're not going to understand everything. Things aren't going to get done necessarily on your timeline. But if you are polite and persistent, things will eventually get there. I think that's a big thing. And I'm not the most I'm not the most patient person. I know a lot of people, former coworkers and stuff, would say, "Oh, you're so patient." It's like, well, that's the outer persona you put on when you're a teacher or a school psychologist, and you put that jacket on. But I don't ever feel very patient inside. As a matter of fact, I often feel very impatient. And so it's been a real lesson for me to be able to just kind of, okay, you really just have to be patient and, take a big breath.
Yeah. I love that. So,
and I have to say, I don't know, never having known, I mean, if you think about it, what would people complain about, like the bureaucracy here, but there are people, in the United States who've been born in that environment. And I think, well, I don't know that there's significantly less a bureaucratic process if you're coming in from another country, and not speaking the language and having to do all this. I don't think it's any less amount of bureaucracy.
I think that's
I
a
could
fair
be
point.
wrong, but because I haven't had to do that. But
I love
anyway.
this. So one of the things that you talked, there's a couple things I want to pull out of what you said. You were talking about refugees, and you and I worked at 3 school sites together that really served refugee populations.
A lot of refugees.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I learned from working with refugees is that there is like an ebb and a flow of excitement in a change, and then kind of it it gets a little bit scary kind of in the middle, and then the excitement comes back. And I've watched it happen with my students over and over and over again. Do you feel like that's the same in deciding to immigrate?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. For me personally, it has been more exciting, but I'm not a like super, I know I kind of, but I think I'm a pretty even keel kind of person. So um, I didn't ever feel like fearful.
Mm-hmm.
People always mention it's so brave. I don't feel like it's been a brave thing because I have been, to me, what would be scary would be not having the means to do what I did. I mean, I was in a situation where, I sold my home. I had, I could fund a bank account. I mean, it wasn't like, um, scary in that way of, where's my livelihood? It was worrisome, in am I going to be able to find a lease that meets the requirements in time to do all this? It was more just, the kind of bureaucratic type headache and worry and stuff, but I never felt what I would call fear about this is, a scary, unsafe type thing,
I
which
love
I
that.
can imagine our refugee families had so much fear and trauma even before they came to our country. And that, it's very different, I think. Um, but I do, there were times I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? That kind of stuff. You know, it's not all, what is it? Something in roses.
Hearts and roses.
Hearts and roses, or, lollipops and fairy tales or whatever. But I will say, this is the strangest thing, because you mentioned, like, I do feel so relaxed here. And I mean, part of that's I'm retired, but I was retired for almost 2 years, still being this a year and a half anyway. But this is going to sound strange, and I've told, I think, one other person this, but seriously, I wake up every morning with a song in my head. It's not always, I don't even, like, sometimes it's a song, it's like, and I don't know where the song comes from always. Sometimes it's like an old song, I'm a rock and roll girl, and I'll wake up with, some old, Moody Blues song, or Elton John, or Beatles, or this morning it was Cat Stevens' Moonshadow. I mean, I'm telling you, and I don't know why that song pops in. Different times, different songs, but seriously, every morning since I've been here, every single morning I wake up and there's a song that's going in my head. Maybe I have a brain tumor. I don't know.
You don't have a brain tumor. This just makes me so happy. It makes me
Isn't
so
that the
happy.
weirdest thing? I know. Well, you're the music teacher.
I used to be the music teacher. This week, in the
I
past
know.
8 days, I
know,
resigned
yeah.
from teaching.
I saw that.
And 4 days ago, I signed with a listing agent to sell my house. It goes on the market September 15th. And so I was asking questions originally. I wanted to have you on the podcast because I'm so inspired by your journey. And in the last 8 days, I'm sort of thinking,
well, you're doing it too.
I could do it too. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You are doing it.
I am doing it. I am doing it.
You are doing it. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes the things that we put in front of ourselves, the blocks, can be pretty scary sometimes, but they're usually, I have, this is a real tweak, but I used to collect, I don't have them anymore. I saved only 3, but I used to collect little fortune cookie fortunes, the ones that not all of them, but they've gotten kind of dorkier the last few years, but they used to have some really good ones now. And when I'd see a good one, you know, I'd keep it. And I have 3 that I've kept. One is like, I can't remember exactly what, but something like, there is yet time enough to take a different path. I always thought that was kind of, you know, that was one of the, I think that was the first one I ever saved. But the one I was thinking of is, and I saw this one and I was like, this is so true. And you like, here's like the psychologist in me. Decisions terminate panic. And that is so true. I thought, oh my gosh, because we create so much fear and worry and panic around the unknown and what's going to happen and what if we do this. But as you probably, once you make that decision, it's like, okay, I've made the decision. Now I'm going forward. And sometimes there's other decisions that follow. You have to keep doing that. But I just love, that's one of my all-time favorites. Decisions terminate panic.
That is my favorite. That is my new favorite.
I know. Isn't that great?
Decisions terminate panic. And I think that, oh, it's so true in so many ways. I know that for myself, when I'm in the decision-making process, that's when I feel anxiety, not once the decision has made.
Not once the decision's made. Exactly. Yeah, I agree. So I just, and I've had that one for a long, long time. It's very worn and it's in a safe place. but I think, yeah, it's held true for a long time that, you know, and I'm the same way. It's like having or waiting for a decision to come through. I think that's, for me, that's even more worrisome or panic arousing, is when you have to depend on someone else to make a decision that impacts you. You know, like getting the word that your visa's approved. It's like, wait, is it going to happen? And, you know, what happens if this doesn't, you know, and you get all that, you know, all the what ifs and, you know, all that kind of stuff that just kind of keeps you spinning. But then once you know, it's like, okay,
yeah,
that one's done. On to the next hurdle.
I love that. So little Millie, your little puppy, just looked into the camera, and
did she?
Oh my gosh, she is as cute as she can be.
Isn't she? She's my little companion. That I got her, so I got her in January, 2 months before I decided I'm selling my place and moving to Portugal. So she's had to come along for the ride.
Oh, I bet she loves it.
Yeah. She's turning into, she's not even 2 years old yet, so she's still a little one. And she's been a real trooper. She's been on a plane, she's been on trains, she's been on the metro. So she's pretty good.
That's amazing. You're just living your best life. It's so inspiring, because the more that you live your best life, the more other people think, oh, I could do that. And then it gives permission to people to say, hey, I could go do whatever it is I want. I love this.
Well, because there's nothing, you know, particularly special about me. I have my talents. I'm not being denigrating, but you know, there's a lot of people.
Well, you are extraordinary. I mean, you are extraordinary. I vividly remember the feeling every time I saw you in the lunchroom. I was like, yes, because, you know, as a school psychologist, your schedule varied. And so you were at one school one day and at another school another day. And
we didn't always cross paths.
Yeah, I never knew which one. And then I moved around from school to school. So
you did. And I didn't, and even when I was out of school, I never had the same necessarily lunchtime, because I would always, it would depend on what kids I needed to see. So, you know, because I mean, however many lunches they do at elementary, 6 different lunches, 6 grades or whatever. And, you know, there were some days I didn't have, I would schedule it so tightly. It's like, well, if I get this kid then, and then when they go to lunch, I'll get this kid. And it's like, oh, I need to have my lunch in there somewhere. You know.
Yeah.
It just changed every day.
You have inspired me. Thank you. Thank you for this
Oh, well,
conversation. Yeah.
well, you're inspiring me. I love seeing what you've been doing, and that you've been through as many changes, maybe not overseas, but you've been through at least as many changes in the same amount of time. So it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's good. It's a
And
lot. Yeah.
yeah, and yet look at you. You're like grinning ear to ear every time I see you. So
That's the way I feel. I mean, I have been sleeping better since moving to Oregon than I had slept for the previous 17 years. And
wow.
since making the decision to embrace my business full time, I just feel so much peace and expansion. And I'm just so excited. It's like everything I'm doing isn't even work, even though it's considered working. It's not work. Like
Right.
talking to you right now is the most fun, and that's part of my job.
It's your job. I know. Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome.
It's so fun. Thank you. I have a few rapid fire questions for you, and we'll see
Okay.
how it goes. They may not be rapid. We'll we'll go.
Because you know me.
Well, and me, right? So, what is in your morning mug?
My morning mug is
Mhm.
coffee with cream, no sugar.
Love it. Love it. I'm a coffee girl. I mean, I drink tea too, but the
I
first
do
thing in
too.
the
I
day,
used to always drink tea, but I've switched to coffee, and it took me a long time to think coffee tastes as good as it smells, but now I'm hooked.
now you're there. Is there a song that you love that every time you feel it, you just feel expansive and possibility and lit up?
Oh
And
my gosh, I have so many songs that way. I actually created a Spotify list of, I don't like the name of the playlist. I think I called it Heart Songs or something, but they're all songs that from going back to like elementary school age all the way through now, that either take me back to a place or an experience or whatever. Um, I'll tell you, do we have time? I'll
we
tell
have
you the
time.
story anyway, because you'll love this as a music teacher. The earliest song that's on this list is Simon and Garfunkel's Last Night I Had the Strangest Dream. You know, it's from
Mm,
Wednesday morning, and they didn't write it, but you know what song I mean?
yeah.
Last night okay. So when I was in 5th grade, one of my older brothers was serving in Vietnam. So this is during the Vietnam War. He's like 9 years older than me. So, um, and I loved this song because of, all of the stuff he was going through. And so I went to the music teacher and I said, I would love it if our class, would learn this song and maybe we could sing it at one of the assemblies or something type things. And so she said, okay, she said, I don't know that song. So, can you write it down for me? So you got to think back. This is like on the old, 33 album. And I'm sitting there, a little 5th grader, listening, backing it up, writing it down, getting all these lyrics down. But I did. So then I went back, a week or so later and said, here's here's the words to the song that I want us to learn. And then I didn't think, and she took it, I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple days later, maybe within a week or so, I was, how you hang around and you visit your 3rd grade teacher or whatever. We'll say 3rd grade teacher. I don't remember which one it was, but I know I was in 5th grade when this happened. And I was visiting this other teacher and she said, oh, we're so impressed with that poem you wrote. I think they're going to have the newspaper come out and take a picture of you. And I was just like, and I was pretty naive, but I was at least enough to know, like, oh, I didn't write that song. I didn't say, this is not my poem. I'm going to get in trouble. They're going to have plagiarism. And I was freaking out. So I was like, no, I didn't write the song. I just wanted to learn that song. So anyway, I still love the song in spite of the fact that it sent me into a little tailspin of panic as a fifth grader, but we never did learn the song, which, I mean, as a class, but it's always been a favorite of mine. I always sung it to my boys when they were little and that kind of stuff. But so that's one song, but I have a zillion songs I love.
That's a great song and a great story.
Yeah.
Love it. Who inspires you?
Oh my gosh. Again, there's just such a long list. But who keeps coming to my head right now, believe it or not, is my dad, who's now passed away. And my dad was, he was a product of the state of New Jersey foster system from the time he was 8 years old. So we're talking like in the 1928 until he was 16. I can't imagine, well, I can't imagine having worked in the field I worked in, you know, what kinds of things he experienced. I know that in that era, a lot, he was basically taken in, you know, by farmers and stuff, just as, you know, to be a laborer on a farm and stuff like that. But my dad was one of the most intelligent. He only went to school through 8th grade, but he's one of the most intelligent, you know, well-read, funny. I read somewhere that, you know, it takes the highest level of intelligence to appreciate the lowest form of humor. And they were referring to puns. And I was like, oh, that's my dad. Generous, good guy. So, yeah.
He sounds amazing.
And in spite of the fact that he had so many hardships and a lot of personal demons, we'll just leave it at that at this point, he didn't pass any of that on to us, you know. Whatever he experienced, you know, he did not pass on any history of violence or abuse or anything. Treat us poorly. He was a great dad.
That's
He taught me
beautiful.
how to dive, swimming, you know, and taught me a lot of other things too, but how to dive, how to drive,
That's
how
so
to give.
cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So we'll just leave it at that.
That's a great answer. So lovely to have those parental impactors be a positive thing. Do you listen to podcasts or do you prefer audiobooks?
Well, I still read. I do read on a Kindle now more than actual book, which was something I started when I realized how much more you can take on a tablet than a bunch. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. One of my sons listens to a lot, and he'll often refer me to some different ones now and then. But I don't have like any that I listen to like as a, you know, regular listener.
Yeah.
I do listen to music all the time. I have Spotify still. I actually I have a TV and a soundbar, and I listen to music more than I watch television here. So part of that's because I mean I can get Netflix and that kind of stuff too here. I just don't do a lot of TV watching, but
me neither.
But I love having the music on. Knit.
Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Read, listen to music. So
yeah. So my last question is, when you are experiencing something hard, whether it's fear or sadness or anger, and you need to flip the switch to access joy, what do you do?
I think my biggest thing is, I mentioned swimming. I love swimming. I taught swimming and even taught, worked with that aquability group for many years.
I didn't
Boise.
know that.
Yeah, I was their first volunteer, teaching kind of a therapeutic swimming stuff. We had lots of children with autism and any type of disabling condition. But it's funny. Now I just swim and I enjoy it. But there were a lot of times, especially like at work, if I had a really frustrating day or something. I mean, boy, could I swim the laps if I was frustrated and irritated with someone. Going back and forth. Yeah, but I'm not a fast swimmer. I've always been more of a teacher and a lifeguard. I never swam competitively because I'm not fast. Partly because I have asthma too, interferes with the whole being fast. But I can just keep swimming and let my mind go, and it's where I do my best thinking and getting it all out, whether it's it's the combination of the physical of it, but also I think just being in the water and it's just really therapeutic.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you.
I also have one more thing. There was a counselor I worked with many, many years ago, and sadly he's passed on, but he still lives in my head. I think sometimes when you work with someone, counselors, professionals like that, again, I'm retired. I don't have this anymore, but there were times, when I get frustrated about something. Usually it was a work frustration. Sometimes, my kids or something, family. But I could get to the point where I'd say, what would David say about that? And actually, I didn't even need to have him in the conversation physically anymore. I could just kind of have my own therapy session with him, and
that is
in
so
absentia.
wise. I love that answer because it's true. We do have those people in our lives that show up for us and help us work through things.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I know our listeners are going to love you. Well,
I'm going to have to start maybe listening to your podcast.
I would love that.
Not after this one. Well, it was great speaking with you and seeing you. And I'm so excited for what you're doing too. So I'm happy to have shared this conversation as well.
Thank you. It has.
I want to go give you a big hug.
I know. I want to do that too. Maybe soon. You never know. Maybe I'll come to Portugal for a visit.
Well, if you do, I will happily show you around. I do have kind of the room I'm in is an office. Like it could be a guest room for a day or two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.